Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. Well, we're only a few weeks or a couple weeks away from trout fishing beginning around the state. And in our area up here, usually that first part of trout season is tough fishing. And you got to be aware that at that time of the year, you're going to have to do something completely different than you would a month later. When the water stabilizes, the temperature gets different. There's a lot more food going on. The fish's metabolism is increased because it's warmer and they can react quicker. They can travel more. But in the early time of the season, in the beginning, April 1st was always the most important day in my life as a kid because that was the first day of trout fishing. At that time, the water's probably going to be high. It's going to be cold. It's going to be dirty. So the fish are going to be more, they're not going to be lingering in the current areas. They're going to be cold. They're not going to be necessarily dirty, but they're going to be cold and not comfortable. They're not going to move as fast because they're cold-blooded. So the water's cold, they're going to be cold. And so the pools, the slower water areas are where you really have to concentrate at this time of the year. And the other thing to think about, and I was talking to my buddy Rocky this morning because he's a guide on the Salmon River. And of course, this time of the year, the steelhead and the trout have come in there to feed on the lingering remnants of all the salmon run in the fall with all the bits of eggs, or maybe there's still eggs drifting down. They know there's still food there, and they've come into these rivers. But the rivers are high. The Salmon River is high. And this is just the same example. So for a fisherman, if the water's high like that, access is very difficult. It's not nearly as safe to walk along the shore. You can't get to the spots you want as easily. So high water can be really a problem. It's interesting, though. Rocky told me that a couple of the guys he know had put a drift boat in the Salmon River, because the Salmon River is really high after all the weather changes we've had. They put a drift boat in, and they got to the Douglaston stretch of water, which is a famous salmon run. And he said they caught 16 steelheads. But they were in their boat. And drift boats are pretty safe in those kind of conditions. I mean, they're stable, and it allows you to fish whole sections of water. But the interesting thing is the fish were there. There were guys fishing from shore, and they weren't really able to access or drift their baits properly or whatever they were using. With a drift boat, you can stay in one position, and you can let the current do your work. You can let the current work your lures, and they can stay in that one place, and the fish are going to come up and hit them. So there's a lot of things to consider. You know, I've talked about the famous salmon runs, that's the Salmon River and some of the other tributaries, Sandy Creek and so forth in Jefferson County, and these are wonderful places to fish right now. But for the rest of us, we got all the inland waters that are going to be opening up to opening trout season. And for those of us that can't wait, we got to remember, we got to slow down our approach. We got to be aware that we might have to fish the same pool for a long period of time until those fish that are in that pool, they're going to be there, decide that they want to do something, because they're going to be lethargic, they're going to be lazy, and they're not going to be eating as often as they will once the water temperature warms up. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.